Mr. Mayor, we've reached 6:30. We have all members present, so you may begin.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. Then we'll call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, and welcome all members and welcome everyone who is joining us by the live stream this evening. We're glad that you're with us. And welcome to Councillor Minnie Jakes for the first meeting of the committee of the whole and council. We're glad that she's here. So our second item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Don't see any, so of course you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. We have no open forum requests. We do have one delegation, and it is from Della Avel, Jerry Boucher, and McKay, all of the Saugeen Rail Trail Association, and they're here to talk to us about the lease agreement. So we can bring those three folks in. That'd be great. There's Della.
Hello, everyone. Am I visible?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you taking this one? Are you leading this delegation this evening?
I am.
All right.
Jerry and Anna virtually supporting.
Okay, that's great. Well, take it away.
Well, thanks for having us. We thought, given the what I would consider the successful conclusion of discussions on the new lease agreement, that it might be a good time to just briefly summarize what we've been able to achieve as a team over the past year, and perhaps give you an insight on what we plan on doing for the next year and really for the next 10 years, given that it's a 10-year lease we're concluding. So without much ado, I'll just jump right in. We've had a successful year notwithstanding COVID restrictions, with the support of our membership and also the board, all of which are members as well, and obviously with the collaboration we've had with the town. So one of the things we're really proud that we've done is that over the course of the trail, we purchased a material called EcoRaster, which is really a recycled plastic product that just sort of keeps the trail together to prevent erosion. And we've managed to do a fairly significant portion of the trail between Mill Street to Catherine Street. So that has been complete, and the feedback we've gotten is that it's made the trail much more user-friendly and preserved it from erosion, typically around the edges where it connects to the roads themselves. And then also along the trail are really what I call picturesque different stops. And one of those that we spent the time updating last year was the Hurricane Hazel site. And those of you who are familiar with it, it's quite an important piece of Saugeen Shores history. And so we installed some park benches, relocated the memorial plaque, and did some decoration and planting of shrubs around that site. So as you go along the trail, it's a good place to stop. And additionally, and I'll come to this third item again in the plans for the future, as some of you know, the path of the trail along Highway 21 has been a bit problematic with traffic and visibility. So we installed some new signage to help with safety along that part of the trail. And as I indicated at the start, this is a volunteer organization and all our members are volunteers. And so membership drives are pretty important to us. And I would say we had a very successful 2021. And one of the ways we signify some of our donors is to update the donorship panel we have on the River Street. So if you go along the trail, there's a panel there with some names of folks who've been generous in their support of the SRTA. So we were able to update that because obviously we got new members. And then additionally, in the last year, particularly, you would have noticed we had quite a bit of storm activity that caused a lot of tree damage and tree loss. And so with the financial assistance from you good people, we were able to plant 50 trees and shrubs along the length of the trail to sort of try and repopulate the tree population there. And then also, again, unfortunately, given the some of the issues we've had with trees, we've had lots of dead trees along the trail. So we've been able to remove over 40 large dead ash trees along the corridor. I think it's between Highway 21, between McNabb Street and South Street. So we're able to get that cleared up. And then we also replaced the sign and restored the garden at the intersection of McNabb and Highway 21. And And then one of the key things that was done last year, which enabled me to be speaking to you today, was to have an annual general meeting, which was a virtual one, at which a new president, yours truly, was appointed. And then we also actually got a new board member. It's important for the sustenance of the association that, we keep getting new people to join the board and be happy to support. So we're glad we're able to do that. And I would say we've been very successful in increasing our volunteer involvement and engagement in the last year. And on a slightly unfortunate note that improved was there was a bit of vandalism along the trail, particularly around the River Street and Memorial Garden washrooms. But again, with the installation of some cameras, it served as a good deterrent. So that stopped. And then two other things I'd just like to touch on from 2021 that you probably wouldn't have in the notes I sent was that this was very important in that over the winter, we did extensive winter grooming on the trail to enable the trail to be used all season for cross-country skiing, for walking and hiking. And the way that really happened was we have built a winter groomer. And so volunteers bring their ski-doos and they connect and they just go and groom it back and forth. So we had quite good support from volunteers doing that. Particularly in these COVID times, I think people being able to go out in winter was really good. And the last other thing we did was we produced a PR safety video, which we've posted on our website, which sort of overviews the trail and gives people helpful hints on etiquette along the trail, do's and don'ts, so to speak, to keep the trail useful for all of us in the community. It's on our website and our Facebook. If anyone wants it, I can flip it to them. So at a high level, that was maybe the dozen things I wanted to touch on for things we've done. And if there are no questions at this point, I'll just jump into a few things we're looking forward to for 2022. So this will be a much shorter list. The first thing, obviously, is signing the agreement that we've just been talking about. So we're looking forward to doing that. And it will be a 10-year agreement as usual. The Saugeen Rail Trail has been working with the town for over 30 years. So we want that to continue as long as the town exists. But one of the things we want to be able to do is the trail actually extends, between Louis Street and further past the Walmart. It belongs to the county. So we'd love to work in with the town and the county, be able to sort of have this sort of arrangement with the county. So there's that continuity along the whole trail. So that's one of our goals for this year. And additionally, given the success of the Eco Rasta product we've used on the trail, we want to extend that between Catherine to Louis, and then potentially from Louis Street to Lamont back, and then beyond. But to do that, again, as I said, we will need to work with the town and the county just to make sure that we have the right arrangements in place to facilitate that. At the working level, I must say there's a pretty good relationship. But it's just important that the same way we formalize this with the town, we will do the same with the county. So hoping to do that. And then one other thing that's really important to a lot of our members is, can we extend the trail? So we're hoping we can put a small exploratory committee together between our members and maybe folks from the town to explore extending the trail. And we've internally discussed potentially connecting the south side of Highway 21 through to Carlisle Street to Dennis Dam. So sort of extend it along that part of town. But at this point, it will be exploratory to see what is needed and sort of what funds can be raised to support that. And additionally, we would like to increase the tree. We'd like to increase the tree planting, and so we would. We've submitted 2 grants for external funding to support tree planting activities, and that's as part of our broader fundraising plan for 2022. And then one important piece that we also want to improve on, I did mention Highway 21, and then we are aware that it is a provincial highway and different governments need to be engaged, but we would love the support of the town so that we can really figure out a way to improve safety along that part. It's a really well-used part of the trail. And for some people, they kind of want to pause there because they're a little bit uncomfortable crossing the highway. So it's something that would really love to figure out the solution, whether it's signage, speed limits, control crossing, you name it. We've had several discussions, so we'd love to do that. And finally, as I said, our members are our lifeblood. So we're looking to grow our membership in your individual capacities and your capacities as counselors. If you know anyone who can grow the organization, we are happy to have you point them our way. But that's really the focus for 2022. And that's really all I wanted to touch on. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Thanks very much, Della. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? We'll start with the Deputy Mayor, come to Councillor Mayette, and then Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And Della, thank you and your committee for all the work you do. The rail trail in Saugeen Shores is one of the main attractions, along with North Shore Park, of getting between Southampton and Port Elgin. I know I ride it several times a week, and it's always well kept and maintained, and I appreciate all the work that your group does. As we get closer to moving to the grand opening of the Lamont Sports Park, I also look forward to the work that you and your group and the town will be doing to making that the major artery, so that most people that do go to Lamont Sports Park do take the bike, because it's a lot easier, it's a lot safer, and a lot healthier for people riding than driving all the way out there. So keep up the good work, and council will support you as much as we can.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments.
We'll get Councillor Mayette next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I have a couple of questions and maybe a couple of comments. Della, thanks a lot for your presentation, and reiterate what the Deputy Mayor said about all the work you do. You mentioned your membership. Can you let us in on how many members you have in your organization, and what is the annual membership fee?
So it's a donation. So we have folks who donate anywhere from, say, $20 to, we've had much more significant donations. Our membership numbers are hard to give you an exact number because it's on a rolling basis. So when you donate, you're a member for the 12-month period. So actually, one of the things we've discussed is maybe making the membership more fixed on a calendar basis. I would say, and I can get you specifics, it would be over 100 members. As to whether it is several hundred, I wouldn't be able to say right now, but it's quite a significant number, and it evaluates, it fluctuates, because some people might support us for 3 or 4 years, fall off a couple of years, and turn around and come back again. So if we added folks who've donated, say, in the last 5 years, to be quite significant. But one of our goals is to formalize that, so we can each year tell you it's 200, it's gone up 10%, gone up 20%, etc.
I know where you're coming from, because I'm involved with a couple of organizations with volunteers, and retaining volunteers is just as difficult as it is recruiting new volunteers. Another question I have is, I think the last time that we had a delegation from the Saugeen Rail Trail Association, and I think it was closer to budget time when we were considering our annual allocation to your organization, we had asked for a financial statement of your organization listing your revenue sources and your expenditures. And I, to my knowledge, have not seen that come through yet. Can we expect to see that in 2022? So
what we've agreed in the short answer is, of course, you can see you can see our source of funding. What we agreed in the lease arrangement was, I think it's supposed to be around October when you do that planning. And so that's when we come in and outline what we've done for the year, what our plans are, where we hope to raise funds and activities we want to do. So we've set that out in the lease agreement, but typically the plan going forward will be to come to council towards that planning cycle and commence the discussions on what we plan to do for the year.
Okay, well, it would be good to see a financial statement. I know that other volunteer groups, the airport comes to mind, they're required to submit a financial statement of all their expenses and income for the year, in order so that we can make an informed decision on funding sources. And just one last thing, a comment, maybe I just wanted to point out, maybe it was an oversight on your part, but one of your main accomplishments that, at least from my point of view and many others in our community, was the successful pilot of the snowmobile working relationship for the section of trail across Mill Creek Bridge and out through Concession 6. And I want to congratulate you and your committee for supporting that initiative, and hopefully it can be carried on for years to come to keep the snowmobile users safely off Concession 6. Thank you.
Thanks for that comment. And just to answer that, I'm glad you made that. I also understand that there is a review or a look at Cobb Bridge to provide alternative sources of transportation. So I'm happy to hear that as well. So yeah, it was a good discussion. So long may that continue.
Yes, if we can get our funding for Cole Bridge, that'll eliminate the need for the use of that bridge. But that that might be some time coming, but thanks a lot. Bye.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Della, to you and your team for your incredible continued work over the years. The rail trail is one of the treasured assets in our town. Our recent Environmental Stewardship Committee survey showed that our respondents also treasure the rail trail, and that was frequently mentioned in comments. Many also expressed concern about the Highway 21 crossing in the section that we had on active transportation. And we know that that's been a persistent concern for years, that the town has tried to work with the MTO to make that a safer crossing. And we also know that the MTO has rejected suggestions for improvement from the rail trail and the town. For instance, I know a couple of years ago, the rail trail offered to pay for paving the shoulders to make that safer. And we weren't allowed to do that. But I'm hopeful that as we continue and as the province continues to emphasize the importance of active transportation and people become more aware of that and more supportive of that, we will be able to reach an agreement with the MTO to make some more improvements, because that is a really important crossing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to get the Vice Deputy Mayor, then Davinsky, then Jakes. Vice Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor.
thanks, Mr. Marandella. Just more of a comment than anything. Thank you so much for all you do, and Ann McKay and Bruce Alexander and Jerry Boucher and Joyce Gamble and the whole works. It's a wonderful team. I was involved on that committee for a good number of years. My heart, soft spot for the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. It's a wonderful, wonderful organization in our community, and I know that tens of thousands of hours been put in by volunteers over the years with Saugeen Rail Trail Association. And our $25,000, you put in $75,000, I'll take 75 cent dollars anytime. Thanks for raising all the funds you do for our community, all the work you do for our community. And it's not very hard for me to support that $25,000 when I know that $75,000 being matched by the Saugeen Rail Trails. So thanks for all you do. And I've driven on that Eco Raster paving grid for a fair number of times, Della, and that's a good product. That's a good product. And anything we can help with erosion of our trail system, I'm all for it. So thanks. Just please pass on my thanks to your entire committee for all the great work you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Della. Della, thank you very much for your presentation. And like the Vice Deputy Mayor said, please pass on our congratulations to the committee that takes care of this year in and year out, because a lot of people talk about it, and they aren't just hometown people. These are visitors as well. They're really impressed. I just wanted to ask one question. You mentioned your number 10 thing in 2021, reduced vandalism at River Street washrooms and Memorial Garden due to camera installation. That's wonderful to hear. Do we need another camera installation somewhere because it's a trouble spot, or are we doing just well? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Well, I know that when the around the area that the Mill Creek Bridge area, sometime around the late fall and winter, there was vandalism observed there. People took photos. We reported to the town and to the county. Unfortunately, along that stretch, and I think even around the area around Lamont, and as there is increased use, particularly if we look down the road to Lamont becoming a very popular place for people to go, it might be helpful for that area in particular, that triangle sort of where the trail becomes a Y, I think that'll be a good place to keep an eye out. I don't know where these vandals come from, but I just think that's a good place to put one. And there might be one or two other places, but I do appreciate the fact that we can't put a camera across the whole trail, but for key areas such as that, it would absolutely be helpful. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, can't hurt to ask. And when we have budget sessions and as the Vice Deputy Mayor said, 75 dollars anytime. If you can help raise funds as well, I'm sure council, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they'd look favorably on this to maintain the rail trail. So the rail trail, if you know what I mean. And it would be worth, even if you got to know, at least you tried. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you. Councilor Jakes.
Okay, quick question. You mentioned that there is a video on safety for the trail itself. I'm just wondering if that video has been put on the tourism website for the town with a link that goes directly to your website. Reason being, not only visitors, but also our residents use the tourism website. And we do have a trail section. So I think it would be a good idea if we could actually add some content talking about trail safety and then a link that would take them to the Saugeen Rail Trail website. And maybe we might get some local people discovering that you have a website and some information on the trail itself.
That is a fantastic recommendation. Thank you very much. We will take the steps to effectuate that. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any further questions or comments from members? I don't see any. Well, thanks very much, Del. It's good of you to give us some of your time this evening and tell us about your 2021 accomplishments and the look ahead to 2022. You mentioned that you were eager to sign the rail trail agreement, the 10-year agreement, and I can tell you I am also eager to sign it for the municipality. It's been a great association relationship for 30 years. Hard to believe it's been 30 years, but but I'm sure it will continue to be a great relationship for 30 more and beyond that. And we're just very grateful to you and to all of your volunteers and to your board of directors for all of the work that you do. And I know we have a couple of representatives come to the Rail Trail Association meetings as well on behalf of the town. And we're eager to continue to send folks to those meetings and to stay closely connected. I think it's really important for us to stay closely connected over the next 10 years and make sure we know your priorities and the Rail Trail knows our priorities so that we can work closely and collaboratively together and build that trail up because it's such an important piece of infrastructure and a really well, much treasured thing in our community. So thanks very much. And we'll talk to you again soon. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
All right. So we're on then to 7 reports of municipal officers. Just go back to my agenda. All right, so we're now on to 7.3, infrastructure and development. And the first one is a planning report, Z 2022-012, Lord Elgin Estates Limited, Summerside Subdivision, Waterloo Street. And we will turn it over to the planner, Karina Smith, for the report. Karina.
Good evening, Council. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Okay, so I'm coming back to you this evening with a zoning bylaw amendment application. This is Z 2022-012, and it's for Lord Elgin Estates Development Limited. This is the site located within the Summerside draft approved plan of subdivision. This is specifically known as Block 55. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the lands that are currently known as Block 55 to R4. It's specifically R421. Residential forest density, and that would be rezoning it from the R3 zone. And this would be to allow a high density development, and the current proposal contemplates 3 apartment buildings. The current number of units proposed is 330 residential units. So you recall in our public meeting, this was before council last Monday, and the site plan is currently as presented on the screen. The applicant, as noted, is proposing 3 apartment buildings, and based on discussions with staff, we did identify an opportunity to specifically identify some setback requirements as it relates to the R4 zone. So for building height, as you may recall,
We might have lost Karina. Well, that's too bad. We'll give her 1 sec here and see if we can get her back. There's Jay. What do you think, Jay? Should we move on and come back to this one, or can we? Can you complete the report?
I'm reticent to put it to the end. I'm not sure what else is after this. Karina is, I think, trying to log back in. Kara and I can both, in the interim, help answer questions. Oh, Karina's logging
she
back
might be
in
back.
here.
All right, we'll get her back here.
That's called tap dancing.
That's right. We're
Yeah, there
vamping.
you go.
Vamping. Yeah, geez, come on with a joke, Jay. You were
Another
practicing
time,
your thing
another too
last
late.
time. Are you there, Karina? Oh,
my apologies, Council. Can you still hear me?
we can hear you. Yes, your video is choppy though. Maybe you can, maybe if you just turn your video off and we can just listen to you, and that might prevent us from.
Sure, let me try doing that. I'll just continue talking and
Yeah. Okay.
unfortunately. So anyway, as I was saying, we did have the opportunity, county staff, town staff, and the applicant to discuss the proposal. As it relates to the height, we did make a recommendation that for every increase, incremental increase in height beyond the 12 meters that are currently permitted in the R4 zone, that there would be an increased setback. So that may mean that in the R4 zone currently, there is a minimum apartment dwelling interior side yard setback of 5 meters. So a building could be within 5 meters of a neighboring property, but that for each story above 4 stories or each incremental increase in height, it would need to be set back. Alternatively, if that building was just a straight flush of 6 stories in height, it would need to be set back. As an example, in this particular site, if it was 21 meters in height, it would be set back 13 meters. And these provisions would apply specifically along the southern property boundary where we do have the existing single family homes, which you can see in this picture here, which is taken from Waterloo Street. Where we did not see the need to have that tiered system was specifically along the northern property boundary, which has the benefit of the linear park block to the north, which would provide an additional buffer to any new homes or townhomes that may be provided north of the site. Similarly, it wouldn't be required along Waterloo Street or Bruce Street because the neighboring residential properties would also have the separation provided by the streets. As it relates to issues with respect to compatibility, we also requested, based on comments provided at the public meeting, that there be a 3-meter planting strip, and that would be provided adjacent to the existing single-family homes on Mary Rose, and that would also be provided along Waterloo Street and Bruce Street. And we did want to provide some clarification as it relates to zoning bylaw interpretation. I know there was a comment specifically in the report at the public meeting about Bruce Street being identified as the lot frontage. And that is strictly for bylaw interpretation purposes. There are currently proposed accesses onto Bruce Street and Waterloo Street based on the current concept design. I know there will be some modifications to that design based on further discussions with the town, but that doesn't mean that traffic is solely restricted to accessing either entering or exiting the site from Bruce Street specifically. The other item that I did want to identify was that this is a greenfield site, and so there is opportunity, particularly with the provincial direction to use land more efficiently, to look for opportunities for intensification within settlement areas, that this provided an opportunity for a site which, while it was approved back in 2011, both the demands of the town in terms of the different housing types, but also the direction of the province and the policies have changed in that period. And so this was seen as a good opportunity to provide intensification, but also recognizing that there are the existing single family homes to the south, and there should be opportunity and consideration given to ensuring appropriate setbacks are provided. There were other comments expressed by members of the public at the meeting, and those were specifically related to the density of the proposal, the height. There were concerns expressed with respect to traffic, and that was addressed at the public meeting, identifying that the applicant had done a traffic study to update the 2011 study and identified that traffic, even with the build out of this site for high density purposes, would allow for an appropriate traffic flow, and it would not create traffic problems to the point where they would need to modify either the road intersections or that they would need to make a connection out to concession 10 through both Bruce Street and Waterloo Street. Those connections will ultimately happen, but they will occur in later phases of the development. There were also discussions with respect to at what stage would it be appropriate to address some of the public comments. And so things with respect to privacy, shadows, views, there were several conversations relating to and comments provided about the amenity areas, whether those would be public or private, and some of the content of those amenity areas. And those are all items that can be addressed through the site plan control process, as will issues relating to the potential orientation of the buildings to address some of the comments that had arisen at the public meeting. So with respect to agency comments, we received no additional agency comments since the public meeting. There was one additional, public request made at the end of the public meeting just to be notified of the decisions, but there were no specific comments provided by that member of the public. And so just to recap, we are looking to rezone the site from R3 to a special R4 zone, which would allow a maximum building height of 6 stories or 21 meters in total. And if approved, this would facilitate development on the site for a total of approximately 330 residential units. Town staff and county staff find that this is an appropriate form of development. It is good land use planning, and as such, we are recommending approval of the bylaw. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Then I'll read the recommendation. It's recommended that committee approve zoning bylaw amendment Z 2022-012 as attached and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to council for adoption. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Karina, for the presentation. I'm getting deja vu because it seems like the same presentation we had last Monday, although you have mentioned some of the concerns. What I was expecting to see when I saw this come back was that building 3 would have been located further to the north end of the block. That was the one sort of overriding comment that I heard from members of the public who live on Mary Rose, was the overview of a 6-story building looking down into their backyards. And I'm quite sympathetic. I'm not so sympathetic to the increased traffic. I think the roads can handle that and the construction activity, but Is there, and I think you've said, and you've indicated that during the site plan control phase that we may be able to reorientate some of those. But if we approve this now, I would have liked to have seen that building or some assurances that building 3 could be located further back. And I know you've got buffer zones, increased buffer zones, so the parking area wouldn't be right against the fence. But I'm having a hard time supporting the zoning change without some further assurances that we can't move the building further away to the north end of the property. And like you said, there's a parkland on the north end. It wouldn't have near the effect on neighboring residents that when they purchased a property weren't aware that this was going to be something that was going to be in their backyard. I don't know if that's a question or not, but that's just the way I'm seeing it. Thank you.
You want to make any comments to that, Karina?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So we did, as I noted, we did have conversations with town staff and the agent MHBC planning as to some of the site considerations, particularly the relocation of some of the buildings. And I know town staff had some comments in that regard as well. And also with respect to where some of the access points are located as well, which may then shift the whole alignment on the property. So the intent of the zoning bylaw amendment is to kind of set the envelope. This is where you can, the buildings need to be set back. There needs to be a certain amount of landscaping provided. We've asked for the landscape buffer strips to be provided as well. It also, through the zoning process, sets the heights. And then it gives that flexibility for those further discussions to happen at the site plan control stage. In the time that we had through the discussions last week, there was an opportunity to kind of come back with a new concept plan, but I want to make it clear that we did hear those comments, and certainly I know Mr. Posner's on the line and he's taking some of those comments back, and that can certainly be brought forward to the site plan control stage.
Yeah, so for clarity, just to be absolutely clear, council will have the opportunity to discuss all of those issues at site plan, and there's a whole other step where we have a decision to make on the design, all those questions after this decision is made. Okay, so I saw Councilor Grace first, and then I saw Councilor Vince. Oh. Hey,
Just as.
that's weird.
Okay, well, I'll just do it this way. Hold it down. So just to be clear, the site plan control, I mean, I thought that usually the way that works is that's handled by the director, and we do not. So they will be coming back to us for further approval on the site plan control.
Just get clarity on that from the planner. Do you want to just clarify the process for us, or Jay, the process?
Yes, so there are delegations to staff, but not in this case. What we've done in the past is we have one overall site plan that's reviewed and approved by town council, and delegate the changes to that, so that if they phase it or stage it over a number of years, they're dealing with staff. But the first instance for this site plan will come to council.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because I think especially given Ms. Smith's comments about the fact that there's a linear park to the north, to me, that is even more reason why it would be appropriate to move that center building to the north part of the development. I have a question about affordability, attainability. What percentage, do you have an idea, or have you talked to the developer about what percentage we're going to see of these 330 units would be in the affordability or attainability range?
Well, I guess if that's towards me, if I may, we've had one conversation with the proposed developer of the site. Right now, we're working with the current owner, and they're consultant. So we've expressed our desires and our targets to meet affordability, attainability, and unit mix. They are aware of our official plan targets to have 30% affordable units. They're aware that we are encouraging accessible, universally accessible units and have already implemented development charges relief to encourage that. They're aware that we want to see larger units, so 3-bedroom units, and are also aware of the development charge relief that encourages that. So they're already aware and we're encouraged early on with our first conversation. I got to say, it's only been our first conversation with the proposed builder, and are excited to get into the detail about how we can support it, what that might mean in terms of site plan, and how other requirements might get integrated into our agreement.
Thanks.
And these would be rental units, is that right?
Well, the proponents proposed the rental. So purpose-built rental is our development charge relief. So if they want that, they need to be rental.
And just one last comment. Last meeting, I had made an inquiry about the modular, the proposal that these units be modular. And I've done a little bit of inquiry myself over the weekend. I know Ms. Smith also sent me some information that I think would be useful or helpful for all of council to see about some projects that have been done by this particular group, this particular company that would be doing the modular build. I had a question about durability, and I spoke to somebody who's actually a civil engineer, just casually asking, and he said, well, in theory, they should be better constructed because they're built in a factory that's controlled. They're not being constructed outside, open to the elements. And so I thought that was interesting. And then Sandy Lindsay of the Saugeen Times actually sent me some information too, that I can share with council. So I think it's an important question to consider, but I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing about in terms of the modular construction.
Thank you. So I have Councillor Davinsky, and then I'll get the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, probably to Jay Posner. Jay, do we have any 6-story buildings in Saugeen Shores at this time?
I don't think so. I think 4-story, if you count Southampton Town Hall's clock tower, that might be the tallest structure. That's like a building structure, but there are lots of, there's no buildings that are taller than that.
Okay, so this could become precedent setting. How would they settle for 5 stories?
Yeah, well, we already permit up to 20 meters, which is about 6 floors between Waterloo Street and Bricker Street in the Port Elgin corridor. That bylaw was passed last July. It was an effort to try to encourage this sort of development so that we could get a higher density, more units at locations where it would make sense to the community.
Okay, but is it still open? We passed this tonight. 6 stories is locked in. Is that correct?
For this site, for the lands bounded as block 55, 21 meters is the maximum height on that property.
Okay, thank you, Jay. I tend to agree with Councillor Mayette. I thought we'd see a bit more because I think this whole outlay here can be rejigged so that it's on the other side, the north side, if you will. And those on Mary Rose will have lots of greenery and buffer between them and the apartment buildings. And I think that's important. I understand that's going to come with site plan control, but I want to make sure site plan control has a bite here, that if the majority of council is saying this is what we want, then that's what we would get, rather than just talk the talk and don't walk the walk. But there is, I want to end on one positive note here, and that is to Karina and the Bruce County staff, and of course you, Jay, and staff here. This thing turned around in 1 week. If you recall, I was a little upset not too long ago about how long it was taking. And I don't know if this is normal for these things, but it turned around in 1 week. And I tip my hat to you for that. I hope this is a sign of things to come. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Might just make a couple of comments on your last point there. The reason why this turned around so quickly is because it represents an attainable, lower cost, higher density development. The town of Saugeen Shores is going to prioritize those kinds of developments above all else. And those types of developments will move more quickly through the planning process. And you can see this is evidence of that. And the other comment, I just want to be very clear on this question of the zoning bylaw and site plan process. And I think your point is well taken, Councilor Davinsky, that, and I think there is bite. If members of council see something come forward in the site plan that council doesn't like, council won't vote for it, and it won't pass, and then it won't be able to be built. So there's bite in the site planning process. We just have to be very clear. These schematics that we get, these drawings, conceptual drawings, can get us off track in these zoning discussions, because we're not approving the layout of the site, we're not approving the look of the buildings, the height. Well, the height's in here, but the all of that stuff isn't part of the discussion. We're talking about the density, we're talking about the height, we're talking about the setbacks, we're talking about this planting strip, but that's all we're talking about. And when it comes, and we don't want to start making decisions on the basis of the elevations or where the buildings are on the site, because that's not part of the zoning bylaw or part of our decision here. And we just have to be very clear about that. So hopefully council can separate those two things and make sure we stay focused on the zoning bylaw elements for tonight. And it's going to come back at site plan, and council will be able to make a decision on that at that time. And if we like what we see, we'll pass it. And if we don't, we won't. Sorry, Jay, did you have a comment you wanted to make there? I think I saw your hand go up.
No, I think you addressed it. It was related to the sort of enforcement of it. Like there's a material issue here, not just a legal or administrative. The material impact is that the concept envelope is approved, and we need maximum ability to work with our other site requirements, like access through the site and where amenity spaces. So to have something imposed at this early stage is not recommended, which is why and Luke has already repeated it, why we're encouraged by the developer with what they want to do, where it can be located, so that if you like what you see at site plan, you would approve it. And if you don't, you don't,
Okay, sorry, further questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just a few comments. I'll be supporting the recommendation. I looked at the R3 current zoning on there, and with 4-story units with R3 zoning can be built on that site, and which adds up to about 190 units with an R3. Rezoning to an R4 gives you an extra 140 units, and it comes down to, we want to rezone from R3 to R4. What would 330 rental units do for our community with a 0% vacancy rate? I think 330 units, rental units, would go a whole long ways to adding housing stock from the rental side of things. I'd like to speak on behalf of those 300 families on the application wait list, Bruce County wait list for housing. We've got a dire situation here with housing, and high density housing is something that I certainly support in this community. It's not popular with all, but for me, it's the right thing to do. It's addressing a dire housing situation. Our housing task force spoke to the need for increased housing diversity. Those recommendations were all discussed by this council. And I think all of council really is very much aware of the need for rental housing in Saugeen Shores. It's not just that 300 families on the application wait list. I've heard from dozens, and literally in the last year, dozens and dozens of people that really do need rental housing. So to go from 180 units to 330, in my view, we've got a builder contractor willing to invest tens of millions of dollars probably in this development. I just think it's a really good thing for our community, and I'll be supporting it. I know, I think the orientation of the building is important, reorientation. I think the buffering at the south end for Louis Street residents is really, really important. I think we listen to them. I'm talking about the north side of Louis. Mary, sorry, not Louis. I've got the name wrong. Mary Rose. Sorry, Luke. I saw you, Mary, looking at me like I was crazy. It's Mary Rose. Sorry, but you know, I think those changes are really, really important. And I think we did listen, and the developer listened. And you know, I'm with you. If it comes back to site plan control and those 6-7 areas that were outlined to us this evening, some of those requirements are not met, we have the right to turn it down. But I for one, am, you know, doing my best to separate the R3, R4 from site plan control. But I do understand concerns around the table of all of council. They're good concerns. I think the Mary Rose subdivision people or housing people there had some good concerns. So anyways, I will be supporting the recommendation. I think there's a real need for this in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I got the deputy mayor, and I'll get Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I, like the vice deputy mayor, agree that this is a good project for the community. I believe our developers are going to do what is required, working with town staff and county staff. The setbacks that are proposed, the reallocation, realignment. I think when that comes back, council will have a better idea, but I think we do need to move forward with this. As Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt said, that's 330 rental units, something we do not have, something that we sorely need. So I look forward to seeing this coming back to council.
Hey, thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I would also like to share my support for this motion. We as a council have aligned affordable housing and attainable housing as one of our highest priorities in this term of council. And this is due to a lot of the great work by the Attainable Housing Task Force. And by providing this level of density, we're not only meeting our own targets of managing appropriate growth, which, as Mayor, you like to remind us, we are the fastest growing community in Bruce County, and therefore we need to provide adequate availability of housing for those that are joining our community. We also talk about the cost and rising costs of living, and anyone here can speak to the cost benefit of supply and demand. And obviously by increasing the supply, or rather, you know, we acknowledge that demand is going to continue to grow for at least the next little while. And by increasing the supply, we can hopefully drive down some of those costs and meet a few different deliverables that this committee has put together. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members of the committee? Don't see any. All right, so just a couple of comments then. And I think so the comments that have been made by members of council with concern for the neighboring property owners are well taken, and I think well recorded by our staff. And I think that they do need to be addressed when this matter returns for site plan approval. I think there's some opportunities to reorient some of the height on the property, so as to move it away from those existing residences on Mary Rose, and maybe move it more toward the northern part of the property. And some other things, I think we need to be very careful, as we do in every development, about lighting and amenity space and all these things. And so all of those, I think, are appropriately held at site plan. And I think council does expect, and I want to speak on behalf of all of council, I think I can, in this case, council does expect to see some of those things addressed in the site plan. So hopefully, well, I know our staff is listening, and hopefully the developer is as well. In terms of the question before us this evening, the move from R3 to R4, I do support that. We have, and recall, this council has been increasing the density in zones across the municipality in order to address the housing crisis that we faced. By just last year merging R1 and R2 zones, we increased density across the municipality. And in this case, this piece of property is being proposed for a single step up in zone density. And I think look, we originally zoned this property more than 10 years ago. Having been on council myself at that time, I can tell you affordable housing was not the issue then that it is today. At that time, R3 looked appropriate. Townhomes looked like a fair bit of density back in 2011, believe it or not. It doesn't look that way today. Today, we need apartment buildings. We need rental units. We need a lot of them. We need hundreds of them. And we need them now. We needed them yesterday. So this is why it's advancing quickly. This is why it needs to get done, and it will still advance in a way that's sensitive to the neighborhood and to the neighbors, but it will also advance in a way that's sensitive to all those people that the Vice Deputy Mayor referenced who are in desperate need of housing in our community and who we want to have live here and who we are relentlessly going to find housing for. So if you couldn't tell, I will support the resolution. And if there's nothing further, you've heard the recommendation. So I'll ask all in favor. And it's carried. Okay, so now we will find the next item, which is 7.4, Community Services, Parks and Recreation, and a staff report on the Saugeen Shores Rail Trail Lease Agreement. And we have Frank Burrows on the line to take us through the report. Frank.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'm pleased tonight to report on the new 10-year lease for the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. And I think we heard earlier, there's a great deal of accomplishments and a long history with the town. The dedicated volunteer base has accomplished a great number of things over the years. I'll highlight just a few things. The pavilion at Memorial Gardens, the new accessible washroom at River Street, and a significant section, almost 2 kilometers long, was paved with asphalt. There are some of the specific capital improvements that the Rail Trail Association has completed over the last 10 years. The popularity of the rail trail is quite significant. We've established trail counters at the rail trail and other trails in town, but the counter at River Street Crossing, for example, tabulated close to 70,000 user days on the rail trail in 2021. So I think that just demonstrates the significant popularity of the rail trail. So I'm pleased to submit this lease renewal, and I think the main things that have changed since the last renewal, we did almost a clause-by-clause review of the rail trail, a number of housekeeping things, a number of relatively minor adjustments in the wording, but it's been given a thorough review. You'll notice a much more detailed map has been included. It shows the right-of-way throughout the town. That shows the area that the rail trail covers. And the third main change is the end of the rail trail at the south end ends now at Louis Street in Port Elgin. And that was proposed by the Saugeen Rail Trail Association, that they would want to end the lease area there. The area south of there, which is the triangle down, and then the branch down towards Walmart and branch over Mill Creek towards side road 1314, they'll be now maintained by the town and the county. And I'm sure there will still be continued cooperation by the rail trail, but in terms of a formal lease area, it excludes those areas. So this that brings my conclusion. It's a 10-year lease that will conclude December 31st, 2031.
Okay, thank you. So I'll read the recommendation. It's recommended that council pass a bylaw to authorize a 10-year lease between the town of Saugeen Shores and the Saugeen Rail Trail Association through to December 31st, 2031. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace and then Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Frank, for the report, and congratulations on putting together this lease agreement going forward for 10 years. I do have one question, and that's about the use of motorized vehicles. Paragraph 3 in the agreement says the Saugeen Rail Trail Association will permit the use of motorized vehicles upon the lands only for the purpose of development or maintenance or emergency vehicles, or for rerouting of traffic as deemed by the town. And then paragraph 14 says the land shall be used only for active transportation. So how do these clauses affect the current agreement we have regarding the snowmobile use near the Lamont Sports Park?
Yeah, so with this new agreement with the lease area ending at Louis Street, it does not include the area that has the interim agreement with the snowmobile club. So that triangle near Lamont's that the snowmobile club shares is now not part of the Saugeen Rail Trail lease area.
Councilor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on a similar vein, when I looked through this a couple of days ago, I noticed that the map didn't go all the way down to concession 6. So does that mean that the bridge and the triangle, actually the bridge was always Bruce County, but the part of the triangle, there was that 150-yard stretch around and south, is no longer under the jurisdiction of the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. Is that what they've relinquished here?
That's correct. In that
Was
area,
was that at the request of the town or at the request of their organization?
the rail trail, in our discussions about addressing that part of the rail trail suggested that would be a good solution for the time being. And I think there was some thinking longer term as things evolve and maybe as the snowmobile trail changes or returns to its original route, that we could then amend or revise the area.
All right, so they've washed their hands of that issue with the snowmobiles then, basically.
So the snowmobile and the rail trail don't overlap right now with this new area.
Okay, good solution.
Okay, further questions or comments from members? I just wanted to follow up on Councilor Grace's question, actually, and it kind of stuck out to me, and I just wonder what it means. So the Rail Trail Association and the town, if we were to sign this agreement, will only permit motorized vehicles for maintenance or emergency vehicles, but there's a lot of motorized vehicles used to trail with electric motors, a lot, scooters, electric e-bikes. And honestly, in certain cases, particularly with the e-bikes, it is a little bit concerning. As somebody who owns property along a significant portion of the rail trail and crosses it pretty often, sometimes those e-bikes can be going 60 kilometers an hour or more down the trail. And I just wonder, is the intention here that those bikes should not be permitted? They do have a motor. What's the thought on that?
So we did work on some definitions in the lease agreement, active transportation and definition of e-bikes. So there is quite a bit of detail of what is included. So the definition is there. E-bikes are included, but I think the e-bike is defined that it uses to assist in the movement of the vehicle. It's not the primary mode of transportation. And I think the idea of some of them traveling fast, whether it's a bicycle or an e-bike, I think that's the whole idea of trail sharing. We try to do education on safety and use your whistle or your horn, and everybody has to respect the shared use of the trail. So that hopefully will help address the safety concern with some driving too fast.
So just to be clear then, because I did see the definition, so the e-bike is defined and it means a bicycle with an electric motor. But I don't see the corresponding elements in the agreement that permit e-bikes. I mean, because it has an electric motor, it's a motorized vehicle. So, but I don't see the corresponding phraseology that says that they are exempt from the elements that Councillor Grace just read through. So they are exempted somewhere in here? Or am I just...
Yes, they are. Under active transportation, it's in brackets. It includes e-bikes. So in definition A, any form of transportation that's human powered, including walking, cycling, including e-bikes. So e-bikes are permitted.
Okay, all right, that's clear enough then. Are there further questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll ask all in favor. Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so we are now on to 7.7, communications and petitions for information. There are 10, pardon me, there are 10 items there for your consideration. Anybody wish to discuss any one of those? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like to thank Bruce Power and John Peevers. I think that the letter that Bruce Power has written to the Minister of Housing is a very solid letter. They talk about, the increase $540 million per year, 19%, 3.3 billion per year to address housing affordability. And there's other big numbers in there, 672 million to average 3.7 billion of funding Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And I know local developers. There's one or two that have accessed those funds from CMHC. So that kind of funding is important. I just want to say this though, Mr. Mayor. I guess you hear about all these dollars, and I just not convinced 100% that those dollars are being funneled back into rural Ontario. And I think that, yes, the big votes happen in Toronto and Hamilton and London and Kitchener, all the big cities, and where these big dollars seem to end up is in the big cities. And I don't know what's in store, Mr. Mayor, at some point in time, meeting with the minister, but Minister of Housing. But I think it's just a good thing that we need to be, getting in front of the minister to say, look, we like all the announcements you've made federally, and that money will be funneled down into the provincial level and back down to the county. So I'm talking about rental subsidies for one example. But the money's got to end up in rural Ontario too. And I'm not sure it is as much as it should be channeling back into our coffers. So, I just think you as our mayor and anything the county can do to speak to the Minister of Housing to address this situation, that don't forget about us little guys in rural Ontario, that we have needs too for housing. And it's one thing, all these big billions and billions of dollars being approved for big cities, but let's get some dollars here. I just want to thank Bruce Parr for that letter, though. I think John Peevers did an excellent job writing it. Thank you.
And I'd echo that. And we, as you recall, I have met both with the federal minister and parliamentary assistant to the minister just a couple of years ago on the issue. And we are seeking further opportunities to talk to federal officials on that issue, specifically looking for a bigger piece of the pie or a fair piece of the pie to come to rural communities like ours, particularly ones that are growing quickly and that need that support. So stay tuned. We're on that.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add one last thing. We have potentially, 600-700 rental units coming on the market here in the next 6 months a year. And boy, wouldn't it be nice to have 20-30% of those, come along with rent subsidies through CMHC and through additional funding to the province and the feds. And let's bring more rental subsidies and have the county manage the system. But let's get some more rental subsidy dollars for this community. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just speak briefly about the police board minutes. And the minutes of February 16th illustrate the important contributions our police force makes in supporting our community members through their compassionate and effective interventions in domestic disputes and mental health crises. The pandemic and other social and economic challenges have demanded much of our police services, and they step up to meet the needs in our community. And this set of minutes has several examples illustrating how they do that. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Further comments or on these items? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to bring attention to the letter from the Bruce County Federation of Agriculture that was written to their members about the science-based research into the Deep Geological Repository for Nuclear Waste. I'd like to commend Chris Cossett, the president of the Federation, for taking the time to encourage his members in the agricultural community to take the information that's available and to study it and make an informed choice on this. This is this is not something that can be taken lightly, and it will definitely have an effect on the people that live in South Bruce. But I think it's a positive step for him to come out and encourage his members to take into consideration all the facts, social, economic, and environmental outcomes when they're making their decisions. So I'm just commending them on taking that unbiased approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from any members on any item of correspondence? Don't see any. So we'll move on then to reports of department heads. And the first is an information report on the Community Economic Development Initiative, Council One-on-One, and Workshop One, and the Economic Development Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. At the January 10th Committee of Whole meeting, we brought a report highlighting the successful application to the SETI program and its mandate to improve economic prosperity of the participating First Nation and the adjacent municipality. Together with our partners at Saugeen First Nation, we continue to move through the SETI program process, including the upcoming Council One-to-One meeting on May 9th and a Workshop One on May 10th. Both of these meetings will be led by the SETI team.
Very good. And this is going to be a really exciting opportunity. So we'll have the one-on-one workshop with the SETI folks, and then the opportunity then for what will essentially be a joint meeting between Saugeen Shores and Saugeen First Nation councils, which will be a first in my time on Saugeen Shores Council, and it's about time. And so I'm looking forward to that. I know we all are, and I hope all members will make yourselves available to be there for that important occasion, and an occasion for us to have some really important conversations between our communities. Are there any questions or comments for the Economic Development Officer? Don't see any, so we'll move on to the second report, which is also from the Economic Development Officer on the Innovation Park Application Guide.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. As staff move through the development process to ready the lands in the Innovation Park for sale, we recognize that a process for identifying developments ideally suited for this location was required. The Innovation Park Application Guide was created as a way to evaluate expressions of interest to locate within the Innovation Park in a clear and transparent manner. The process will favor projects and business types outlined in the zoning bylaw and those that provide positive economic, social, and financial impacts to town. Economic development staff will work with businesses looking to locate within the Innovation Park to support their expression of interest submissions.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments on that report? Don't see any, so thank you very much for your work on that. We're looking forward to obviously continuing to see that project develop and seeing some good businesses and innovators located in the park. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
All right, so that moves us then on to the information report on the annual water reports. And do we have the acting director of infrastructure and development? There he is.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Yeah, these reports are, as you say, they're annual reports. They're mandated or regulated by the Ministry of Environment, put together by the operating authority, which in our case is Aqua. You'll find the reports that come on the website. They are posted now, they're posted today, and they're paper reports for anybody, any member of the public that want them. They're at the front counter. They outline, as it says in the report, they're outlining our system, requirements of our system, size of our system, how it works, any of that type of stuff. Any regulatory requirements, those type of things will be on these reports. We typically in the past have put together our inspection report with this same one, but in the inspection report was a little bit later. It's finished now, so it will be coming at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions or comments for the acting director? Councilor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to commend the director and Aqua for, I believe this is probably the 4th year in a row where they've had 0 exceedances of any parameters. And I think it's a commendable effort on their part. And I'd just like to say thanks and keep up the good work.
Yes, thank you for that. Are there further questions or comments? I think that's right. I think and folks should know based on these reports. And I'd encourage all members of the community to look at these reports. This is one of our most important, council's most important responsibilities and one of our most important services, that we continue to provide adequate and clean drinking water. And this report indicates that we have done that through 2021. And also important to note, and I know many people in the community express concern or are interested to know whether or not our infrastructure is able to accommodate the growth that the municipality is experiencing. And this report shows, in June of 2021, we saw our maximum flow, a little more than 10,000 cubic meters in a day, which used about 58% of our rated capacity. So that's the highest amount of our capacity that we used at any point during the year 2021, which demonstrates that yes, the municipality is well situated to continue to accommodate growth. We have excess capacity in our system. And of course, we continue to plan and build out the infrastructure to ensure that we continue to have lots of capacity going forward. So folks should be confident that we have safe water and confident that we have more than enough of it. So thank you very much, Colin, for providing those reports. That's much appreciated. So that moves us on to item number 4, an information report on mandatory firefighter certification regulation. We have the acting fire chief. There he is.
Can you see me?
We can see you fine, Brian.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to give a quick overview of our what's come out from the Office of the Fire Marshal. They're introducing a mandatory firefighter certification regulation. And what this will do, it will make all the fire departments across Ontario have unified training, which will be better for their safety. And it will require all departments, all firefighters, to be certified in NFPA standards. And the impact on these on smaller fire departments, mostly rural fire departments, is that they will have to decide what type of fire protection they can provide. If they don't meet all the qualifications, for an example, they may not be able to do internal structure firefighting. So the good news is, if this came into effect today, we would meet all the requirements to be a full service fire department. And that was the purpose of this information report, was to let council and our citizens in Saugeen Shores know that we're prepared for this.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments for the acting fire chief? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Just really a comment, Mr. Mayor. Brian, thanks for your presentation. And you mentioned about the full service fire department. That when I hear those words, it kind of scares the heck out of me when I'm talking about we've got probably the best volunteer fire department in all of the province of Ontario. And I just want to thank you and all of our volunteer firefighters. When you take a look at $1 million budget, and I look to the east, a $3.5 million budget, $4 million maybe, won't sound. I'm not sure if it's somewhere between 3 and 4. We just have an excellent force here, volunteer firefighters. I take a look back at that incident back on February 28th at the Maplewood Motel. 7-minute response time and damage to a couple of units, no doubt. But boy, we arrive in the scene pretty quickly, and we're pretty fortunate in our community to have a volunteer fire department, Brian. So please pass on my thanks personally to all of the volunteer firefighters, and they're doing a great job. So thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank this council and previous councilors, our councils, for providing us with the equipment and the funding to make our department what it is today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Chief, how goes the recruitment process? I know there was an ad out to fill in some vacancies. How's that going?
Thanks for the question. We've finished the interviews, and we will probably be announcing the successful recruit firefighters by the end of this week.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Very good. Further questions or comments for the chief? Well, thanks very much, Brian. This is a really good news report, and I think it should be, everyone should know, because what it shows is how well trained our volunteer firefighters are. They're trained to the very highest standard, and that's evident in their responses and in the work that they do every day, not only in our own community, but we're even able to project out and support our neighboring communities very often because we have such an effective fire department, volunteer fire department, and this is more evidence of that. So thanks for bringing that report to us. It's good information, and as the Vice Deputy Mayor said, pass our thanks along to your volunteer firefighters.
Thank you.
Okay, and that brings us on to our final report, which is an information report on council remuneration and expenses. Questions or comments on that one? See any? All right, so that brings us to the end of the committee of the whole, and we'll have statements by members, beginning with the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome our two newest councillors. Now, I know Councillor Davinsky's been here for a couple of meetings and he's got his feet wet and is doing very well in representing his municipality. And I just want to say to Councillor Jakes, welcome and all the best, and anything you need that this council can help you with, we're here for you.
Thank you very much. Then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Just two quick items, Mr. Mayor. This Wednesday is a very special day for Lamont Sports Park Illuminating Dreams fundraising campaign team. We'll be making a $100,000 announcement in the council chambers. And a big thank you to Bruce Power and to you, Mr. Mayor, for emceeing our big day last week when we announced $250,000 from Bruce Power. It was a big day, big day for our committee, and some significant announcements coming up over the next 4 or 5 straight weeks. And I just want to say too, April 9th and 10th is the Rotary Home Show, and they're calling it the Expo Food and Home, but it's at the Southampton Coliseum, 11 to 5 on Saturday, 11 to 4 on Sunday. And Rotary, Port Elgin Rotary, as we all know, do a wonderful job for our community, and they have a raffle going on too. If you check the Saugeen Shores Rotary website, the tickets are matching $1 for $1 with funds going to the Ukraine Relief Fund, and the Red Cross it's Red Cross Disaster Fund, and I think they're contributing up to $5,000. But if they can raise $20,000 in sales, that's what they're trying to do, and they'll match it with their $5,000 contribution and 15 from sales. So wouldn't it be great if $20,000 was sent off to the disaster relief fund for the Ukraine disaster, which is a horrific situation happening. So just want to mention that for the Saugeen Shores Rotary, they're doing great. The Port Elgin Rotary Club are doing great work in our community.
Absolutely. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too would like to echo the Deputy Mayor's sentiments and welcome Councillor Minnie Jakes, representing the Port Elgin ward, my counterpart, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. I would also like to recognize many of our women's hockey teams in Saugeen Shores. The U9 girls specifically just won a WOA championship yesterday, and 3 of our 4 teams are moving on to participate in the Ontario Women's Hockey Association Ontario Championships next weekend as well. With that in mind, I would like to take this moment to recognize the arena staff who have or in the process of taking the ice out shortly in the Coliseum, and then shortly after that in the Plex. Another successful year, but looking forward to a year in which we will see 12 months of ice in the near future, and their hard work will continue throughout the year.
Thank you. Councillor Jakes.
Thanks. Just like to say thank you for the welcome, and to those that are watching or maybe getting the message that I'm your new representative for the Port Elgin ward. Just want to say, if you do see me on Main Street and you wave and I do not wave back, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I do have low vision, for those of you that don't know. So please feel free to come up and talk to me and identify yourself, and I'd be happy to talk to you. And I understand my contact information will be up on the website, so you're free to call or email me, and I'm looking forward to hearing your concerns and also talking to you about what ideas you have for our community as well as Saugeen Shores as a whole. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we approach Vimy Ridge Day on April 9th, I'd like to highlight a related local heritage story based on the research of our Heritage Committee Chair, Bill Streeter. The Battle of Vimy Ridge, which started on April 9th, 1917, is Canada's most celebrated military victory. And although Canadian troops captured the ridge held by the Germans since 1914, it was with an enormous cost of dead and injured. In 2003, the Canadian government passed Bill C-227, declaring that April 9th would forevermore be known as Vimy Ridge Day. Bill's research shows that in our 4 local Saugeen communities, 58 men lost their lives in World War I. But Donald, or Dan McIntyre, is the only one who died at Vimy Ridge. Raised in Bruce Township in Port Elgin, Dan and 3 of his brothers fought in France and Belgium. Dan was killed on the first day of the battle, April 9th. He's buried in the Canadian Cemetery in Pas de Calais. A new commemorative veterans banner to honor Donald Dan McIntyre will be displayed in our town this fall. And Bill has submitted a detailed story on Dan and his brothers' World War I service to the Saugeen Times. And this story will be published on Vimy Ridge Day, which is April 9th. Thanks.
For that, Councillor Davinsky.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Carr.
Sorry, nothing from me either, Mr. Mayor, tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I'll just start by saying we were successful in getting all our fins clipped on March the 20th. We had a tremendous turnout, I think partly because of the announcement here, but also from our group of 250 volunteers in our association. And we had a tremendous support and picked up a few new members along the way. And one of the other things I'd like to bring you up to speed on or update on is the Launchpad Initiative. We had a successful meeting with BWXT in their facility on Arlington Street over here, or Wellington Street. And some great things are happening, and they're happening really fast. NII is on board, BWXT. We're going to see an actual Launchpad facility sooner than later. So stay tuned. We've got a delegation coming to council very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a few things from me this evening, some things that went on last Thursday. I participated in the Bruce County and Grey County Federation of Agriculture's Politicians Day and heard a lot of interesting updates about what's going on in our community's agricultural community, some of the interesting work they're doing and some of the things that they are struggling with as we come out of the pandemic, and issues around the world, of course, have come home to roost to affect our agricultural community. It's a major economic driver in the town of Saugeen Shores, and so we're glad to stay well abreast of issues impacting them. I also, since council committed to the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, I have been invited to and have accepted a role on the Mayor's Advisory Council on Coastal Resilience with the committee, and participated in my first meeting with them last Thursday, and lots of work going on there to advocate on behalf of the Great Lakes. So I will keep council up to date on what is happening there. And finally, and I want to say big thanks to the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for arranging a series of ribbon cuttings to welcome a number of new businesses to the town of Saugeen Shores, 8 in total on Thursday. They weren't all new businesses, some were just new owners of existing businesses, but all are welcome, and amazing to see how much dynamism there continues to be in Saugeen Shores' economy, given the last couple of years that we have come through. Lots of great young, exciting business owners starting really great businesses in our community. And I was pleased to welcome them, and I know council is pleased that they have established themselves in our community. So with that, that brings us to the end of the committee of the whole. I'll ask for motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Mayette, all in favor. The committee is now adjourned, and we will reconvene at 10 after 8 for council.
Mr. Mayor, we reached 8:10. We have the Vice Deputy Mayor hasn't quite quite returned from break yet, but you may commence the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Hopefully, Vice Deputy Mayor can join us before too long. I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting. And the second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you could do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions or deletions. We have no public meeting, so that moves us on to adoption of the minutes. Just resolutions, bear with me. And I have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the council meetings of March 14, 2022, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of March 14, 2022, as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Grace. Any questions or comments to any of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, so that moves us on then to item 7, reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first one is a striking committee report. And I have a resolution that council adopt the striking committee's report and recommendations dated March 10, 2022. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Davinsky. Any questions or comments to that resolution, Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I'd just like to make a couple of comments about this. I'm sure speaking on behalf of our committee members for the Environmental Stewardship Ad Hoc Committee, who worked so hard on these recommendations and this report. I'm very pleased to see this report coming to council for approval. The recommendations that are included in this report reflect also the concerns and comments collected in our committee resident survey, and particularly in the areas of climate change action, organic waste diversion and reduction, and protection of our town's urban tree canopy. Hopefully our report will be of use to staff during their investigations in these recommendations. And I know that the members of our committee will be very happy to provide any further assistance that we can. And members of the public who would like to see details about these recommendations can access the report through the website or contact me and I will send you a copy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment and just to thank you. Councilor Grace is just in her committee, but Councilor Grace in particular has done an extraordinary amount of work with this Environmental Stewardship Committee, and they worked so hard. And I know I know what she went through. I followed her minutes and all the great work her and her committee were doing, but it comes down to leadership, and Councilor Grace provided that and just did a phenomenal job. So thank you, Cheryl. You did a tremendous job. And I just want to say that in the number 8, I look forward to that urban tree canopy plan, tree planting program for Saugeen Shores in our 2023 budget, if I'm there. but if I'm on council, I'm certainly looking forward to that conversation about the urban tree canopy, because I think it's so important for our community and every community and in which we live. So thanks again, Cheryl. Just great work. Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I too would like to echo the Vice Deputy Mayor's sentiments. I am really looking forward to the waste reduction strategies that the council put out, and the machinery that the composting material and machinery that could be coming to town to help us with the food cycle science and all that stuff. So if anybody hasn't read up on this, please do, and contact anybody on the committee, especially Councilor Grace, and she'll inform you of it. It's a great thing. I've been talking to partners at the school about this because of the amount of food waste that goes through the cafeteria every day, and I think it's going to make a big difference in our landfill.
Thank you. Further comments from members? Yeah, it's good to see 9 recommendations coming forward out of that much more extensive plan. We've got the 9 things here that I think that we can move forward over the next couple of years. And but that's not to say that the rest of the recommendations in the report are not going to move forward. I think that they will, and we can accomplish a lot through some of these things. I'm particularly interested in a couple of the ways that we can work with the County of Bruce over the next year to advance some things. The Bruce County Waste Management Master Plan, I think, is a particular opportunity around countywide organic waste collection. I know the town of Saugeen Shores and many residents in the town of Saugeen Shores are interested in pursuing organic waste collection, and I think that's true across the county. So I'm hopeful that working with the county and our neighboring municipalities, that's something that we can advance. And of course, the overall work on developing a climate change action plan and then implementing recommendations from that plan. I think that's work that needs to be done and is recommended here. So anyway, thanks again, as everyone said, to the work of the committee and council. I know looks forward to beginning to implement their recommendations. So with that, you've heard the resolution. I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 2, a staff report on 1500 series pickup truck purchase. And I have a resolution that council approved the purchase of 2 new 1500 series pickup trucks from Peninsula Ford Lincoln for a total cost of $100,599.96 plus applicable HST, and that council allocate $12,370.52 from the fleet reserve to fund the budget shortfall. Is there a mover and seconder? The deputy mayor and Councillor Carr. Questions or comments? The deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, do we know if we will be able to get these for this year? Like, we know that most vehicles are out of stock. Do we know if we'll be able to get these in time for this year? Are they available, or is there a waiting list?
I think the report indicates that it's a 3 to 5 month delivery time frame. Are there further questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Sorry, okay. So now we're moving on to bylaws, and we have 8 bylaws there for your consideration. Does anybody wish to have any of the bylaws considered individually? Don't see any, so I will read the resolution. It is resolved that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 28th day of March 2021. 1/24/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75/2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the town of Saugeen Shores by Ryan Hennessy for lands described as Plan 79, Block 18, Lot 2, Town of Port Elgin, Town of Saugeen Shores. 2/25/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75/2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the town of Saugeen Shores by Kings Lakes Projects Incorporated for lands described as Part Lot 9, Concession 6, former Township of Saugeen, Town of Saugeen Shores. 3/26/2022 being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 17 to the Town of Saugeen Shores Local Official Plan 90/2012 for lands known municipally as Saugeen Concession Lake Range Part Lot 48, Reference Plan 3R10149, Parts 1, 2, and 5, Saugeen Township, Town of Saugeen Shores. 4/27/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75/2006 by Summerside Land Holdings Incorporated for lands described as Saugeen Concession Lake Range Part Lot 48, Reference Plan 3R10149, Parts 1, 2, and 5, Saugeen Township, Town of Saugeen Shores. 5/28/2022 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Bruce County Playhouse and the Performing Arts of Saugeen Shores. 6/29/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75/2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Town of Saugeen Shores by Tim and Jeanette Thorne for lands described as Plan 234, lots B, C, E, and Lane, Part Lot D, Reference Plan 3R7912, Parts 1, 2, 3, Town of Saugeen Shores. 7/30/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75/2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the town of Saugeen Shores by Jennifer Ferguson for lands at 272 Saugeen Beach Road, described as Plan 326, Lot 9, former Township of Saugeen, Town of Saugeen Shores. 8/31/2022 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75, 2006 by Lord Elgin Estates Developments Limited for lands described as part of Saugeen Concession Lake Range, part lots 45 to 50, reference plan 3R8287, Part 1, reference plan 3R9253, Part 3, Part 12, reference plan 3R9846, Parts 1, 2, Part 3, Town of Saugeen Shores, and 9/32/2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meetings of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Want me to do it again, or? Okay. Mover and seconder. Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. All right, and that then moves us to the end of the council agenda, and I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of March 28, 2022 hereby adjourns at 8:21 p.m. As a mover and seconder, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Jakes. All in favor? That is carried. Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.